Hey everybody, Kickstarter Board Game Spotlight today is here with Ito with Heroes and Tricks. Ito, say hi.
Hello.
We are going to talk about his awesome, innovative game that you can play inside the box. So, one of the things I love about it is that it's compact. You can take it anywhere. It has a cool new mechanic as far as like you get to see, as far as a trick taking game, you get to see the suit and the color, but you don't know what the person before you played. Can you talk a little bit about the game and your inspiration for it?
Sure. Well, name of the game is Heroes and Tricks. Here's that box you were describing. This game actually designed with John Gilmore. And Heroes and Trick is basically, it's sort of like a trick-taking game, in particular in the sense that you're playing against a trump suit and you're playing hands at a time to see who wins them. But it's pretty different. It's got a lot more bluff and deduction in it. And basically, there are four colors and four suits. So you have sort of, if you think about a normal deck of cards, you have four suits and two colors, right? But we increase the number of suits, and what that allows, and I'll put this up here so you can see it, is there's this sort of overlapping suit color thing going on where you have two reds, and then two blues and two oranges and greens, but they have overlapping suits. And in this game, you're going to pull a hero out, one of these guys, from the box, and they represent the suit and the color that you're going to be going for. So this guy is the green cards. And you then put them, and let me pull this out. I would have dealt cards. It sounds like I'm going to have a cat join us. And this gets put in the front of the box, and then that player gets to see, the first player who pulled this, because it's hidden information, right? So I've pulled that out, and all the other players, they don't see what happened, right? And I get to see this card, and then I'm going to play my card in front of it. And the actual suit cards look more like this, right? Obviously, the color, the suit, the meowing cat, and you need to play against that card. And the best card you can play is a green card symbol 8. It's a 1 through 8 deck. But let's say I didn't have that. I didn't have a green 8. I might have. Let's see. I might have green dice. It's a little glare going on. Or I might have, I didn't pull one for me. Oh, there we go. I might have red cards, right? So I'm going to be trying to play the best card possible, and if I can't play anything, I'm just going to play a higher number. But then I pass it to the left. So it's got this little telephone thing where somebody's played a card, and I might not know what was before it. So say I played that red 5 card, now the next player only sees that information, and they don't have quite as much information as the last, and everyone's going to play that way. And then at the end of the hand, you're going to have this reveal. Now, everything's being played inside the box. So you're playing in the box. The box also contains all the previous cards. So you just move it around as you go until you reveal everything. The other thing that you have in this game that sort of balances it out and makes it so that it's not just who's the first player is you have a bunch of gear cards that you can also play into this suit. And these cards allow you, or you can play them before the trick or in the trick. And these cards just give you, they can let you, and obviously this is a prototype deck, so some of these cards are just, art placeholder, right? But these gear cards allow you to learn more about the hero that was played, switch your suits, cover both suits, add 2 to your card. They let you switch the direction of play, make it so that no one can play a gear card, all that kind of thing, so that you can manipulate the situation, add an extra hero to the trick, that kind of thing. So that's the basic premise of the game. It's fast, it's quick, it's easy to explain, and it's got this sort of fun, bluffing pokerish feel, and not so much in the gameplay, but in this idea that sometimes you're not always going to win, right? It's about playing all your hands to win, as opposed to just like sometimes when you're playing spades or hearts or like a traditional trick-taking game, you're trying to have this broad strategy that's going to allow you to own the entire flow of the game until you win. This is much more saying, I'm going to lose some hands. When I have a certain type of information, like I know the card, I'm going to play this way. When I don't, I'm going to play this way to maximize the overall number of wins over the course of the game.
Okay, yeah. One of the things I like about it the best is because I take games to restaurants to play while we're waiting for food or waiting in line. I have a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old, so waiting is not high on their skill strengths. And so I'm really looking forward to this game to be able to do that. I know in the video you talked about that you play tested it everywhere. I bet you've got some funny stories about play testing in weird places.
Yeah, well, I mean, fun stories. I mean, it was just, it's fun to be able to play it. We play, in a lot of parks while walking is a fun one. Certainly in restaurants. One of the interesting stories about the playtest, not only did I playtest it a ton and John playtested a ton and everyone, but for the first time, John suggested that I do an online blind playtesting thing. So we had 200 signups and about 40 or 50 people come through that printed out their own decks and made their own with a deck box and cut out the deck and made their own box and played it. And one guy, his wife was pregnant at the time, and he ended up playing it like in the hospital right prior to their kid being born, which was everything went fine. It wasn't a bad hospital visit. It was a great one. But so lots of different places, right? People at pools, not in pools, but near pools, that kind of thing, right? And so I think it's been successful in that regard.
I wonder if that family's obligated to name their child after one of the heroes.
Yeah, and actually the heroes are fun, right? They're all based on sort of gamer stereotypes, right? The veteran, the alpha. Actually, this deck I grabbed, we went through so many playtests and versions. This deck, Gabby, doesn't have the art, but the art's really Dustin did a spectacular job on this art. So if you look at the Kickstarter page, you can see a lot more of the final art because we're about 80% now. Mr. Serious.
I know I was looking at the heroes and identifying my gaming group and everybody's hero that matched that person.
Yeah. Dustin Faust, the artist, just really had a lot of fun with these characters and the items and stuff.
Sweet. How was it working with Jonathan Gilmore? Because I know, I've talked to him a good bit online, and he seems like one of the most positive, awesome people that I've ever talked to virtually. But he just has a great outlook. Did that rub off on you and on the team?
Yeah. He's certainly a super positive guy, and he's super communicative, which is great. He's pretty ruthless too at times with designs and ideas and working through things and iterating. So he's sort of he's not nice in the sense of willingness to focus on finding great design work in your game, right, and working through it. But in terms of being on a team and working with him, just fantastic. This was a very collaborative effort across the board. I mean, sometimes you have this thing in games where my background's in video games. In video games, you have a studio with a development team and everyone's working together. Always. In board games and card games, sometimes it's like you have a designer who hands over a white thing and then a company takes it and they find an artist and they do that. And there's no real team. This was much more of a team effort. It was, again, me, John, Dustin, and Ben Schulman, who did our graphic design. And we'd meet every Thursday at the same time at like 6 a.m. We'd have an open Skype. We talk and online and everything. So we really worked through the whole project together as we went along. I mean, different people came in at different times, but once we were in full swing, and it was just great. We actually, I think we miss our early 6 a.m. calls, but we're not doing them anymore. But no, it was great.
Cool. So this is your fourth project. What's probably been the biggest challenge on this one?
Well, so, I mean, it has a pretty unique thing, right? So this idea that you're playing with hidden information in an entire sequence of a hand is just an interesting challenge. From a product perspective, this box has been a really fun and interesting and difficult challenge in terms of making it so that it works well with the cards, solving interesting physical challenges with the box, how the divider in the middle pushes the active cards forward so they sit in the window, or whether, how the magnet works to close in the front and how strong the magnet needs to be so that the cards don't fall out when you flip the box over, but that it's easy enough to quickly open up the front, getting the size right. This box actually isn't the final box because it it fits all the cards, obviously, but what happens is in different numbers of players, sometimes it can be a little tight and hard to get your hand in, or not, maybe not number of players, but towards the very end of the game, when you've played a lot of cards, there just isn't. So we have to go through a lot of iterations to get this box to both carry everything and fit this component idea.
Okay, yeah, I can. Just working on a regular box for a regular card game, I know there's 1,000 questions that you have to answer. So much less having something that's intricate to the gameplay. I can only imagine how many times you've went back and forth on that. One of the things, because you're pumping out these all these projects, great looking projects too, by the way. How hard is it to keep everything kind of together and organized and moving forward?
It's hard. I mean, I think that it's worth noting that while this is my 4th Kickstarter, it's probably like my 50th game. I mean, my entire professional career and sort of independent career in video games started when I was 18. And so I have, and I've run video game teams of 100 people at Disney and otherwise. So I know how to manage and handle a project. And I've done it for almost 2 decades. So it is hard. You can get better at it. And a lot of it does come down to being organized, to understanding all the different parts of development and pacing it out, not getting too caught up on things when they get hard or challenging or complicated moments. There's always going to be hard situations, but being able to roll through it and make sure it works is something you have to do, right? So, like, for example, one that popped in my head when I was saying this was, so Dustin signed up and he was doing all the card, and actually he's from the video game space, and he was signing up for not only all the illustration, but the whole thing. Kickstarter page, box, graphic design, instructions, all that. And we're moving along, and as often is the case, he established this really high fidelity, ultra fantastic style for the characters, and he really wanted to do it. And on a project like this, you really want everyone to. This, for me, and these games is about making things that the team loves, and it's the opportunity to make. We're not really making all that much money, right? And so he establishes this really, again, high detail, getting a little reflection, but this really, sort of magic card quality cards, and just getting bogged down, and it was taking him a long time. And then he was sort of inundated with, how do we do the Kickstarter? And so basically he was starting to burn out and get frustrated. And so then it's about, okay, well, hey, hold on, let's figure this out. Let's bring in another guy. Let's bring in a graphic designer to come in and support you and take over some of that on the card side, take over the box, because we're never going to get to the end. And, so I reached out. I didn't have anyone in mind at the moment. I sort of canvassed Facebook and people I knew to get recommendations. Ben was recommended. He's fantastic. And figured out what to deal with him and brought him in as well. And that's a really, I mean, again, it's not so much hard for me, but that's a bump you have in a project that's really tough if you've never dealt with it before, and figuring out how to recognize that somebody's not in a good place for the amount of load they have, figuring out how to move it over, finding somebody new. Those are a bunch of sort of learned skills you get to do it sort of in pace that you don't have if this is your first project. I mean, when I was starting out, keep me up at night. I mean, I get good nights. None of this stuff keeps me up at night anymore, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like like almost a puzzle that you had to put together there and figure out, because I've had artists quit on me on some of my other projects, and then you're like, what do I do? Because it puts you in a bad place. So that was cool that you was able to see that and then get him some support, and now it was able to. He probably felt really good there too, to be able to get some of that load off and then focus on the thing that he was probably most creative at.
Yeah, and artists often, like, I don't want to be to generalize them too much, but oftentimes having other artists involved in the project help them just feel better about things anyway. because other people are moving the ball. And when an artist, it depends on the person, but sometimes they're not used to everything being on one artist, especially in the video game space. You usually have more support. So having more people involved is usually helpful.
Cool. So in that same vein, what advice would you give to a first-time creator? I mean, I think you kind of touched on a few things there, but do you have anything like crucial that you could give a first-time creator on staying organized and keeping things on pace?
That's a good question. I think one of the things that I would say to your question on keeping things organized and keeping things on pace for a new for a first-time creator is I'd focus less on pace, in the sense of a pace sort of assumes you have a set time you're going to finish or want to finish, perhaps. I'd worry less about like what date you're going to be done or when you're targeting your Kickstarter and when it's going to happen, and more about progress and just making sure that you're successfully continuing to move the development along and make a great product. And I think that will serve you better than having an artificial date. Things take time. You need to make them good. Murder of Crows, which is a game that I worked on with Thomas Denmark, that was in development for 7 years. I mean, that was a long time. And so that can be difficult because sometimes people are trying to get it done between jobs. They're trying to get it done over summer. They're trying to, there's a lot of things forcing you into a timeline. But I think just focusing on the success and health of the project as opposed to the speed is useful. The other thing in terms of being organized is keep lists. I mean, and they don't have to be sophisticated. They can be sophisticated, but like, I have like a little paper calendar here, and I have a little, to-do list, and they're done on paper with pencils, and I update it. It doesn't have to be, I mean, I also have the spreadsheets and the more organized things, but I just thinking about what do we have to do, who's doing it, following up on it. I mean, those things are pretty useful.
Yeah, you brought up a great point that I've seen quite a few times in projects that I've seen online where a first-time creator will put their Kickstarter page up. People will give them feedback on a lot of things that they're really missing, and they'll pretty much take it and say, well, that's great, but I don't have time to do that. And
Right.
To your point is, you've got one shot here, especially as a first-time creator, to really bring something to the market that people, that first impression, right? And so it's better to have a better first impression and pull that back down and take more time. Don't worry about this artificial deadline.
Right.
Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. It's con season. There's a ton. Origins, Dice Tower, Gen Con, Dragon Con. I'm probably missing like 500 that are in between there.
There are a lot now.
Yeah, there's a bunch. You got anything special planned coming up for any of the cons? Which ones are you attending? Which one could people come by and see?
Yeah, well, so KublaCon, I live in Mountain View, and so KublaCon is sort of the biggest Bay Area one. I just did that con, and I was there with a booth and a demo table, and had Heroes of Tricks and a bunch of other stuff. I'm going to do a number more cons, but that was my last dedicated booth con, if you will. Well, okay, so I'm going to be at Gen Con. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to be at Origins. Origins, though, I've never been to, and I'm just walking the floor. Actually, potentially need a place to stay a few nights. So if anyone could help me out with that, that would be awesome.
Well, hey, let's talk off the screen, because I'm just going with me and my 7-year-old, so you can bunk with us.
Well, I will ask you after, because that's a long story I don't need to do here, but I had a place and I don't anymore. But so there's Origins, and then there's Gen Con. At Gen Con, I'm probably going to do something in First Exposure Playhall. There's a couple new projects that I've been in that space for 2 years, and I think it's a nice event. You don't have a table, but you just have like slots and that kind of thing, time slots. And then after that, after Gen Con, there's PacificCon, which is a local one, which I'll probably be going to, and then BGG.con in November. I haven't been to Dice Tower Con, though. I certainly should in the future. And there's just so many others, but those are the ones that I'll be at. I'll be at Origins, Gen Con, BGG Con, and PacificCon, and all of those are in that don't have a table, just hanging out. Usually I tuck my games in my bags because people ask me about them here and there, right? But I'm going to be playing games, hanging out with people. So I'm really socially active in terms of Facebook and Twitter, and chances are, if somebody says, "Hey, would love to meet up," I'll just respond and we'll meet up. Right? I think it's a very fun and small community, and we all should get together and hang out.
Okay, awesome. So, all right, I know you got more games in the pipeline.
Sure.
Can you give us some hints? You want to talk a little bit about what else you got going on?
Sure. Hold on one second. You always have to have games in the pipeline, right? You have big gaps. So one game, actually, the next game is a game called Herbaceous. And this is a game that's being designed by Steve Finn, and I'm working on with him and Beth Sobel. But it is a really...
I love Beth Sobel art. I love it.
The art is just awesome. And so it's got all of these herb cards. There's saffron. I'm looking at this sort of in my camera, bay leaves somewhere in here. Look, where's something new? There's the lavender. Just utter, like amazingly beautiful cards. Dill, great colors. And so basically, this game's in great shape. We've been working on it for a long time now, and you also have your pots and stuff. And it's meant to be sort of an 8 to 88, really accessible, fun, pretty game that you can play really with your extended family. And the idea is really simple. It's sort of a push your luck set collection game. If you've ever played Biblios, it's got a little bit in common with Biblios, but essentially a player picks an herb, and they decide whether they want to keep it in their private garden for themselves or in the community garden for everyone. And then whatever they do with the first card on their turn, the second card goes to the opposite, right? So if I say I'm going to take the tarragon, I might then in the middle put another tarragon, or I might put a rosemary, and perhaps I wanted the rosemary, but I had to make that decision. And then everyone has these pots, which are sets. You can do the identical pot set, which is you have the pot that, let me see if I can find it, the pot that needs pairs of herbs, you have, which is the small pots, you have the one type of pot herb, you have all different types, and everyone's trying to score those, but obviously the more of a set you score, the better. So everyone's sort of deciding whether or not they can wait a whole nother round to make that decision, or if somebody else is going to make that decision. And then there are these special herbs that have there are less of them in the deck. The chives, the chives, or what's the other ones? Mint. These are all special herbs that aren't as there aren't as many of them in the deck. So that's really the entire game. It's super fast. It's super simple. And it's just pleasant, right? It's just this enjoyable little game that you can that has really nice decisions along the way. So this is my second Kickstarter this year, later in August, if everything goes well. So you're seeing this online a little bit. This is starting to get a little promotion. And then next year, a lot of bigger games are in development. I'm actually moving, Liftoff, my first game, was really big, had lots of components. And then I sort of moved into this progressively smaller space where these Heroes and Tricks. I mean, Heroes and Tricks had a lot going on with it, but it's a pretty small game, and Herbaceous as well. But the next year, have a couple things in development. Vineyard, which is a not quite a worker placement, but sort of a I haven't figured out how to describe it, but it's worker movement placement. It's a little like it's sort of a combination between Liftoff and Takenoko, in that you're moving things around, but they work like workers, but they're not workers in the sense that I have my 10, you have your 10, and everyone's playing until exhaustion. It's more like it's about the small vineyard and the family inside of it, and how everyone's helping them be successful and then earning points on the way through. And then some other cool projects, Fantastic Creatures and Time Empire, in development as well, but those are further away from being done. But so those are bigger box game things that hopefully will hit next year. So we'll see how it all goes. But that's sort of actually probably haven't said that out loud to anyone. I mean, I think if you followed all the different things, you'd see prototype pictures of it, like, oh, that's what he's
Yeah.
talking about. But that's sort of what my slate is looking like.
Okay. Yeah. As soon as when you were describing the herb game, I was like, I already know non-gamers that I want to probably sit down and try to play that with, because that theme, right, is just so easy to explain and be able to draw. Like my grandmother would love to play that. She has an herb garden. So just that, she would be all I want it.
That's the idea. And actually, this was a super interesting one in that Beth had created a print and play for Bonanza. So Bonanza, if you're familiar with it, is a great game. The art is hit or miss, right? It's this sort of weird cartoony bean thing. And she apparently loves the game, but she is not a fan of the art or wanted to make her own art. And so she made this fantastic herb art that she made available as just sort of like, here's a print and play for Bonanza for people who want to do it with herbs. And I remember seeing that art and just saying, oh my, that is fantastic, man. Somebody should make an herb game, right? And I reached out to her and I asked her about, hey, are you, is that a game? What is it? Oh, she was just like, oh, I just did this like over a weekend. It was, and so we started talking, and we decided to work on a proper original game, which is when we got Steve Finn or Dr. Finn involved, and we had to make more cards, and there's more here than she had originally, but it was really inspired from seeing her fantastic herb art at the beginning.
Funny to the different things that can inspire you and give you ideas and push you in a direction.
Yeah, games for me at least, and again, this echoes the like this isn't some huge business thing. It's about the opportunity to make fun things and projects and work with other people, right? So it was an opportunity to work with her. It was an opportunity to work with Steve, and Ben's coming along for the ride as well and helping out. So no, it's fun. It was great. It's been a great project.
Man, I'm really excited about Heroes and Tricks, and then I actually haven't played any of your other games. So on the pledge levels, I've got Siblings and Liftoff.
Trouble.
No, not wouldn't Liftoff. What was it? What was the other one that comes in that package?
Gem Pack cards.
Gem Pack cards. So I'm excited to get my hands on those, and then obviously probably play some of your games at Origins and Gen Con, because I'll be at both of those. But overall, you guys, this Kickstarter is awesome. Check it out. If you like trick-taking games, you obviously need this in your collection. And Ida, thanks for spending some time with us. I'll see you soon. Yeah, good, awesome. And guys, it's been awesome. Get out there, be kind to somebody, back some Kickstarters, and happy gaming. Bye, guys.